The Need for Speed franchise has been in a downward spiral for a long time. Let's get into it. Let's go! If I asked you what's the all-time greatest Need for Speed, the chances of you saying a title that was released in the last decade are slim. Most people would say Need for Speed peaked around the Most Wanted days, and others would say the Underground days. Of course, every game in the franchise has its supporters and champions. I'm not here to deny anyone who loved Need for Speed 2015, Payback, Heat, or Unbound, but in general, the Need for Speed community has been dissatisfied at a minimum and outraged at a maximum that EA has continued to put out a full-price game every 2 to 3 years that isn't fully developed. I don't think I'm saying anything that most of you haven't heard yet, but recently I started noticing a trend on YouTube in particular with channels whose main focus, or one of their main focuses, is Need for Speed games, and that is that they are talking about a wide variety of racing games. And it's been fairly recent, but the reason this caught my attention is because I actually noticed myself doing it as well. Now, I've only been in the Need for Speed content game since 2019, which is about 4.5 years, but already I'm seeing the writing on the wall with this franchise. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying Need for Speed is dying anytime soon. In fact, I'm saying that each new iteration of the franchise is in an incredibly good spot to take advantage of the opportunity to right the ship. The Need for Speed fanbase is, to a fault, one of the most loyal yet critical fan bases to exist. Each new game that comes out, we, and I'll include myself in there as well, we complain about how the game is missing X, Y, and Z, and that we like the previous game better. It's literally the same conversation every time a new Need for Speed comes out. What that tells me is that the fanbase is actually crushing over the possibility of a really good Need for Speed game, and it just keeps spending money trying the next one, almost in spite of the fact that we had a bad taste in our mouth with the previous title. Anyways, back to the creators for a moment. The reason they are important, and maybe I should include myself in this as well, the reason we are important is because you can tell a lot about the general feeling of a fan base by how they are reacting to the different videos and by what we as creators are deciding to make videos about. And lately, almost every Need for Speed creator has shifted their attention away from Need for Speed and onto games that remind them of Need for Speed. And in the case of one of the biggest channels out there, Black Panther, he has been making racing game content on literally everything under the sun. Just in the last couple of months, he's made videos highlighting at least 19 different racing games, and that's not counting Need for Speed. At least that's what I saw. It might actually be more than that. Now, this may come as no surprise to some of you because he does try to cover everything. But my point is that when you see a channel who loves Need for Speed games start to spread it out like that in a very short time period, that's a sign that viewership on Need for Speed content is down, and he's shifting his focus to highlight something else or something new to maintain his viewership. Now, of those 19 games that he made content on, RX Street, Japanese Drift Master, Drift CE, Ford Street Racing, and Night Runners are probably the most relevant to a Need for Speed player, as they all offer some sort of street-style customization, and that being Need for Speed's biggest draw. That's 5 games that have either come out in the last decade or about to come out whose developers are targeting the Need for Speed fanbase. That to me is more telling than anything else. That's the reason I'm making this video. I want to warn EA and whoever the developers are of the next Need for Speed game about the sheer number of games that are trying to compete on some level with Need for Speed. And that's not to mention the juggernauts of Forza Horizon and the Crew Motorfest, who I believe will continue to be successful going forward. We as gamers have so much choice these days that we honestly don't have to buy Need for Speed. And to be honest, I think a lot of you didn't buy on this last go around with Unbound. That being said, if the next Need for Speed was an absolute banger, the narrative would instantly flip from Need for Speed has been dead for years to is this the best Need for Speed ever? It's a weird position to be in, where the fanbase is literally the least happy they've been with your game in a decade, and yet the opportunity to turn things around with one fell swoop is huge. I'd love nothing more than to see Need for Speed make a game that everybody wants, and I'm honestly cautiously optimistic that it will happen in the next couple of games. Someone at EA just needs to hear this and take action. Please, EA, figure out a way to turn this ship around. All we want as fans of Need for Speed is for you to listen to our feedback, implement it into the next game, and then support the game for more than a year with fresh content. I know it's easier said than done, but you have to try because this franchise has a very loyal fan base, even though we like to complain a lot. So let me know in the comments section what you guys think of the Need for Speed franchise going forward. I really do read what you say. It helps me gauge how you're feeling about different games. So I would appreciate any opinions you guys have. Just throw them down there. Let me know what you think. All right. Shout out to all the Heat 5 members of the channel. I will catch you on the next one. Trigger out.